All right, here we go.
No wonder you can't hear me.
Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY! A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up.
Got it!
Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. How are you? Welcome aboard on this Tuesday. It's a rainy day. It was a rainy night, but that's okay. It was kind of nice listening to that roll across. Hope no storms anywhere. But spring rains, baby. Spring showers bring May flowers. What we're looking at now. But how are you? Appreciate you being with us today. As always, another stellar lineup as we look forward to welcoming in Mike DeCourcy, as usual, as we prepare for this NCAA tournament. Dylan Sinn will join us. Chronic Hooiser will be along, and special guest, Robbie Hummel. Fresh off of doing about 2,000 basketball games this year, but we're grateful as always for Robbie to take the time to join us and look forward to that. Hope you've got a great day going, no matter where you are and how you're listening. We appreciate you. Our affiliates on 97.7 The Ref ESPN, always the right call down in Evansville, or 12:30 a.m., 104.7 FM, the voice of the region, WJOB. And 1380 The Fan, Fort Wayne's only sports station. Make sure you keep it tuned for the Sports Rush after Indiana Sports Beat Radio, of course. Don't forget, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Just go to andymoorehonda.com to get more to your door. And our friends over at Hooiser Hanks East, where you can find us doing the post-game basketball show with Todd Leary, when that's in session. But you can go there anytime. I was just there yesterday. Great place to watch the games, and games will be had every single day. Last night, it was the rematch in women's basketball between Iowa and LSU. And much anticipated rematch, but it didn't quite have the fireworks of last year. Iowa gets by LSU with, I'm not going to say it was without any trouble, but they've been pushed harder. Angel Reese fouls out. That was that fifth foul call on her was horrible, but fouls out, and but I don't know that it would have mattered. Caitlyn Clark, 41 points, 12 assists, 7 rebounds. Continues to break more records for her. I think she's now the all-time three-point shooter in tournament history. So she's got that going for her, which is nice. But now the NIT semifinals today at Hinkle Fieldhouse. I'll be up there for that. Then tomorrow, the Chipotle High School National Finals get started over at Brownsburg High School. That involves teams like Montverde Academy, which I saw that Liam McNeely spoke to the Indy Star. Didn't really say anything. So, but actually, that's not true. He did say that his first, Dusty May, the first phone call that he made was to Liam McNeely when he got to Georgia, that is. And so that's going to be it. How much is that going to, boy, if he is able to land Liam McNeely, and And I don't know if Michigan is willing to get into that game because that would probably be more than any NIL money than they have paid any player prior, just because they've been on the cheap from what I understand. But can you imagine if Indiana ends up playing against Liam McNeely, which they still could if he but doesn't matter if he goes to Kansas or wherever, although that series has resolved itself. Play in NCAA or whatever, there's always a good chance. But how's everybody doing on the Andy Moore Honda Hotline? We appreciate you as always. Fred, Brian, Buffalo Bill says, based solely on program performance in today's world of equity, who deserves the best contract, Coach Moore or Coach Woody? Well, here's the problem. Women's basketball does not generate the money that men's basketball does. So this is what people do not understand, and I'm not getting on you, Bill, but I'm just using this to explain it. It's just like when the women's soccer team, national soccer team, was complaining that they were not paid the same as the men. That money is not coming from the United States. The United States Soccer Federation, for example, was not deciding to pay unequal amounts. It's because of the TV money generated. That's why there's more money there. So it's like, sorry, but you don't have the TV ratings that the men has. You don't have the money generator that the money has. Yes, it's growing. It's definitely growing, but it's not the same. Not close. But that's why. But to actually answer your question, Terry Moore has done an outstanding job thus far. I mean, they went the loss to South Carolina, number 1 overall seed, man. That's nothing to be embarrassed about there. So, and they'll be back at it again next season. So good luck to them all. Purdue on the court this weekend as their quest for a national championship, their first ever, will continue. And I look forward to talking to Robbie Hubble about that, because he is he didn't get a chance. He had a very good team that he was on when he hurt his knee back in the day. So this team is taking a lot of people to the Final Four, and I don't mean as much literally as figuratively. So there's that. Brian, in the win column, the Pacers are 1.5 games out of 5th, 2 games out of 4th, and just 2.5 games out of 3rd. They got 3 left at home, 3 on the road. An even split there as they win again. And above 500 for the first time, 10 games above 500 for the first time all season. So good to see that as they continue to roll. Donald, how are you, sir? Jumping on the Andy Moore Honda Hotline. Bob, down at G-Town. Hey, Larry. I haven't seen him for a minute. Appreciate all you guys. 5's on board as well. Yeah, that Brian said he enjoyed watching LSU lose. I'm sure you're not alone. There's a lot of people in that camp, but it didn't have the drama, that's for sure. Crazy. Brian says if he's McNeely, he's calling Yukon. Well, I'm sure that he didn't have to worry about calling anyone. They'll be calling for him. Chris is over in Watton, England. Hello, Chris. How's your day? having a spot of tea. A spot of tea with cream, you know, those bloody Brits. They drink their tea with cream in it. Crazy, if you ask me. But greatly appreciate you. Gritty has no power at work this morning. There ain't jack getting done there. Clean the floors. Got to clean the floors, I guess. I'm not sure what you're saying there, Brian. All the NCAA money is in, men's football and basketball. Yes, but mostly football. Football drives that train. Football definitely drives the train. Jared says, hello from a stormy Lanesville, home of the great Greg Rakestraw. Well, that's where he's from, brother. Yeah, it was stormy night. Storms all over the place. I saw that white going through yesterday. You could see the map. You're like, they had tornado warnings over in St. Louis. And I'm like, well, that's headed towards us. I really don't know if it got that bad. I don't think it got that bad, but the winds were pretty. I did have to get up in the middle of the night and shut the door. It was coming in. Cooley. We get Dylan Sinn a day early. Yes. That's right. It reminds me. We're not on tomorrow. John Boy's on vacation, and so we're not available tomorrow or Thursday. There'll be programming, of course, but I'm heading to the NIT semifinals tonight. And I'll be going to the Chipotle High School National Finals. There's Caden Allen who holds an offer from Indiana, who will be playing in that game. Michael, how are you, sir? He's just on his phone today, he says. Well, it works either way. The truth from down there in Evansville, along for the ride today. Jack, how are you, sir? Bobby says, honestly, he misses home team announcers. He misses announcers that get excited when their team makes a big play. I don't know, man. I think the guys in the Big Ten or like in the NCAA tournament, they do a good job of that, I thought. But we've got to take a break already. It's crazy. On the program today, like I said, it's a busy one. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network joins us. Dylan Sinn will be along, Chronic Hooiser, and Robbie Hummel from, I don't even know, from everywhere joining us. But the former Purdue grad, know that. Appreciate you being with us here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Don't forget, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Just go to AndyMooreHonda.com to get more to your door. And Hooiser Hanks East, where it's a great place to go watch the games, enjoy an immense amount of food. It is all incredible. I had some of it last night. We're back with more right after this.
So you decided we're not going to do tomorrow or the next day?
Oh, well, I'd have to reschedule all those guys, and half of them were rescheduled for some of these shows.
Okay, no worries. I just know where we left off yesterday. We weren't sure. So.
Yeah, that would have been good. Oh, there now.
Is someone supposed to join for the second segment, or is it still you second too?
Mike DeCourcy.
Okay.
Mike DeCourcy.
He's on the email.
Oh, he's usually on it.
Oh, Shannon Griffith just emailed me and said, RC, is the gym still wanted me today? He had texted me. He didn't want me today, and I'm on radio.
No, he was. That's Robbie Hummel is coming on instead.
Okay. I'll email back and say my mistake.
Do 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 do.
All right. Well, I guess we need to go ahead and start the next segment here, and then if he hops on, I'll let him in. But we start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Tuesday of championship week. It is definitely that, man. You've got all kinds of championships going on. Like I said, the NIT wraps up this week, the Final Four tonight at Hinkle Fieldhouse. And then on Thursday, the NIT championship takes place there at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Indiana State up there. It's sold out. I wish would have been able to get somebody from the Sycamores on to talk about that, but it's not very often you get to talk about Indiana State in a fair like this, which is pretty cool. And wish them luck. And then, of course, their coach, who's I headed to St. Louis, I guess. I'm confused now by so much of that stuff. It's crazy how all of that went down. But it's just that's the as the world turns with the coaching carousel. So there's that. Cooley says Liam won't go to Michigan, won't want to face Indiana, and won't be part of a rebuild. That simple. I never say never. Because, A, I don't think he gives two craps about whether he plays Indiana or not. Now, he wouldn't enjoy playing at Simon Scott Assembly Hall now, I can tell you that. But that's nothing that's going to change his life to a degree where it bothers him. So I can't say that I know. I don't think that Kansas will be outbid by anyone. I'll tell you that. And Michigan, like I said, I don't know that Michigan is prepared to do what it might take to obtain his services. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network joining us now. How are you, sir?
I am well, Jim. How are you?
Well, I'm not as busy as you are, as I can tell, getting things ready. I was just talking about Liam McNeely and how he reported that the first call that Dusty May made was to him as Dusty May took over the Michigan program, and he felt that was special. And someone had just said he wouldn't go there for this reason or that reason. I'm like, I don't say never to anything.
Right.
There is no telling. The biggest question for me would be, is Michigan, I just watched the Untouchables the other day. What are you prepared to do? And Sean Connery, when he's dying, he said, what are you prepared to? And that's the thing. Michigan, what are you prepared to do? Because if you're going to get in that ring with a recruit that Kansas is probably in the lead for, you're going to have to open the checkbook. And from the reports was they weren't that giving with NIL. I can't speak to that because I don't cover there and I don't have that. But I think that the fact that they brought in Dusty May, they want and need to be serious about basketball as well. And a school like Michigan, I would be shocked that they would have any limitations, but I would not be surprised at all to see him go there.
Well, I have my trepidations about whether that's the best way to go about building a program. The 5-star freshman as your first recruit, unless he happens to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, is usually
Cooper
not
Flag, maybe.
Well, but that's not their first recruit at Duke. I mean,
No.
So it's not like that there. I'm talking about the litany of players that I have seen.
Yeah.
And Arch and Indiana went through this with Romeo Langford. Bringing in Romeo did basically nothing for Indiana basketball. I mean, I maybe made a nice alumni connection. I don't know. I don't know what Romeo's relationship is with Indiana basketball, but that's the only.
Neither do I, Mike. Neither do I.
I mean, it may be great. It may not be. I don't know. But what I'm saying is that's about the only thing that there could be, because they weren't prepared at that stage of their development to take advantage of what he was capable of doing. And so so it sets you back, because then you've got to go right back out and get more guys. I just don't believe that that's the best approach to get the one and done guy. Like I said, if he's extraordinary, and I'm talking like LeBron, as much as I love Cooper Flag, I don't even know that he's that player. LeBron is, like Alcindor / Jabbar at that time was, but I mean that's how great you have to be a program changing player when there's not anything else in place around you.
Yeah, and I agree. But I don't think that he'll do that. I think that he was smart enough. Well, he's bringing 2 guys with him. So I'm assuming that's John L. Davis and Golden,
right,
his big center. And I'm sure that he's going to go hit the portal, because he knows that
right,
he's got to be ready to hit the ground running. And to do that, you have to do exactly what you said. I think I heard Mike Krzyzewski say somewhere yesterday that, you've got to have a mix. And I agree. You've got to have elite talent, but you've got to have experience, which means age. You've got to have some guys that have been around. It matters. It makes a difference.
I don't think there's any doubt. And I think that, people look at the freshman-oriented teams of Calipari or of Krzyzewski in 2015. I mean, it's almost impossible to have that many freshmen. I mean, in 2012, Kentucky had 3. In 2010, they had 5, but they also had Patrick Patterson. And Darius Miller was at that point, I think, a sophomore. So I just don't. I think that it's overstated the idea that you can't be young. I don't buy that. I don't think youth beat Duke on Sunday. I thought what beat Duke was the lack of physicality. They did not have tough guys. That was the biggest problem for them. I mean, Tyrese Proctor got wrecked on the perimeter, and that shouldn't happen in the way that it did. I mean, first of all, he's a sophomore. That's a veteran now. And he was unable to be competitive. I don't think that they were beaten because they were young. I don't think that Kentucky's guys were beaten because they were young. I think they were beaten because they didn't have a point guard. They did not have anybody to run an offense when you needed to run an offense. They could score with anybody, and I think that disguised the fact that they were lacking a point guard, because they had so many offensive guys that could. If you just ran an action, they could go get their basket or they could go get it on their own, as Dillingham did so many times. But when you were running against a defense that was sophisticated, or at least more so than they'd seen, then they didn't know what to do. And I think that the idea that you have to be old is overblown. I think you have to be great. Everybody's talking about the transfer portal and what it has meant to Alabama. And I get it. I mean, Nelson is a terrific player. He made a huge difference, especially in the Sweet 16 game. Wasn't as great in the Elite 8 game, but he was terrific. Grant Nelson was in the Sweet 16 game. But I don't know if you read the stories that I read last summer from the recruiting trail about how nobody was going to recruit the top 75 kid, like they'd still go after the McDonald's guy, but the 75 kid, he's not getting anything. So what happens on Saturday? But Jaron Stevenson from Alabama goes out and busts 5 threes. Top 50 player, not an elite guy, not a McDonald's guy. Carolina, he's right from Chapel Hill, Carolina, said, whatever, I guess. I don't know if they said that, but they didn't get him. Alabama got him, and he's out there busting 5 threes in the Elite 8. And if they didn't have him, they'd be home. They wouldn't be going to Arizona this weekend without those 5 threes. He turned the game around. So I think you still need terrific players. And I'm kind of tired of the demonization of the freshmen. Get old, stay old. Lots of teams that are old lost in this tournament. Lots of them.
Yeah, the premise to me is you can't win if you only have that, because it's going to be very, very difficult to have that much elite talent in those numbers at that age. So you have to have a mix, whether it's a sophomore, a kid that was a freshman last year, but there has to be a mix, and it's whatever the best talent you can put on the floor. But this may be my funniest transfer portal info breaker of the year, Mike. Oh, damn, it just went away. But so I don't get to see his name now. But this kid from Gambia, from Florida State, rather, has hit the transfer portal. He's from Gambia. The walk-on played in 2 games last year. And I'm like, well, that must be breaking news. It just caught me kind of funny. But
I saw I've seen a lot on Twitter of guys who averaged 1.5 points, and now they're in the portal. And I'm always wondering, like, who's compelled to report that? Like who doesn't say, oh, whatever, we got to know that this guy who averaged 1.5 points is changing schools. I didn't know he was where he was, and I won't know where he's going next.
Yeah, cracks me up. Yesterday, a great women's game. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the TV ratings for that game are.
It will, because
it was on a Monday, and yet I was like, oh man, the Iowa LSU game is. I need to go watch that. So I was compelled and drawn to go watch that thing, and not quite the drama as last year, but still pretty good. But Caitlyn Clark led the way and kind of just quietly, she did the John Cena without doing the John Cena.
How would you like to be the person who said she wasn't great and then watched that last night? How would you like to be that person?
At least that one wasn't me.
I know it wasn't you. It's amazing to me, some of the stuff that gets circulated in sporting media now, when you can watch somebody do what she did last night and then pretend she's not great. It's just staggering what you can say and get paid. What she did last night was beyond phenomenal. With all that pressure, with all that, with all the desire to get back to the Final Four, to go out and play the way she did, as commanding as she was, 41 points, all those big threes.
12 assists? Was it 12 assists?
12 assists. And some of those were dazzling. The court length pass that she threw for the layup. She was just ridiculously good last night. But not, as ridiculously good as she was, it wasn't like, oh wow, like look how she showed up and she did this one great thing. No, this is what she often does, what she frequently does in huge games. It's rare for her to not do that. But this was the biggest stage and the biggest game, the one to get you to the Final Four. It's the hardest game. Every coach you talk to says that's the hardest one because you're so close. And there was pressure because LSU has really terrific players. Flau'jae Johnson was tremendous last night. Angel Reese was great early, and they did a terrific job of shutting her down late.
She was like 6 of 8 to start, and then I think was like 1 of 12.
Yeah. They did a great job shutting her down late. Terrific. It just was a phenomenal performance. And she had great help from her teammates. None of them backed down from the moment, which was really cool to see. But I don't understand why in today's media that we need to make assessments like that where you have somebody that's that exceptional and we need to try to say, no, let's bring them down. I mean, we've seen it on multiple occasions now in the men's tournament with Zach Edey, the constant undermining of him, of people saying terrible things about him. He's just tall. My favorite is he's just tall, Jim, because there are, I believe there are, I think the number is 7 players his size or taller in college basketball, and combined, all 7 players don't average what he averaged this year. All 7 of them. So he's just tall, but he also averages 24 and 12. But he's just tall. I mean, can you imagine saying that and then looking yourself in the mirror? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think it's just because he's tall. It's his overall size. It is a unbelievable. It's just, you just don't see it. We haven't seen it. Ralph Sampson was 7'4", whatever he was. I can't remember, but he
7'4".
was a beanpole.
No. After he was coming in, but after he worked, I don't think he was as physically powerful as Zach is, but after he put a lot of work in, his body really thickened up. And by the time he was a senior and then in the NBA, he was physically powerful. But it's just different right now, and the game is different. I think the game of that day with no 3-point line and with the slow down, there was no clock, so you'd have Dean Smith playing a 35-34 game or whatever. So some of what Ralph might have been able to do was not allowed to be done. But you can't do that now. You got to play. You got to play 30 seconds at a time. And if you want to wait, take all 30 seconds, do it. Go ahead. That's okay. But then when Purdue gets the ball, then you got to guard them. And you got to guard them maybe for 30 seconds and have to deal with Zach. I spoke to Tobe Awaka of Tennessee. I was up in Detroit for the game. And I talked to him by myself on Sunday. And I said, you guys watched a lot of film. Obviously, you're going to do that in a game like this with everything. So what was it like, the reality of him versus what you saw on film? And he said, there's no amount of tape that can prepare you for what you face with him. He said that once you bump into him or try to hold off him trying to make a move, he said there's nothing you've ever experienced that prepares you for that. Tobe was the guy that ultimately Rick trusted the most to deal with Zach, and he fouled out in 13 minutes. That's how hard it is. And you hear a lot of fan complaints about this, about the way the games are called, because they don't call fouls on Zach, and they call a lot of fouls on his opposition. But Jim, you talk to the competitors. Danny Sprinkle, now the coach at Washington, who was Utah State's coach in the second round, acknowledged that it's really hard to defend him without fouling. Rick Barnes acknowledged that it's really hard to defend him without fouling. If you don't want to foul him, you cannot foul him, but then you have to let him have free reign around the goal. And and no one seems to want to do that. Also, no one seems to want to play zone. I don't understand that. That's not my responsibility, but I don't know why you wouldn't at least try it. But he's faced very little zone. He has faced multiple defenders on many occasions, but the Boilers as a team have faced very little zone. I was surprised that somebody didn't try that in the tournament, but Zags didn't, Utah State didn't, and Tennessee did not either try any zone against them. It's that teams have a really difficult time going against him, and like I said, fans, it bothers fans, but the reality is that each of the last 2 years, the previous 2 years, when they were eliminated, Purdue, by FDU and St. Peter's, a lot of what happened was the willingness of officials to allow smaller players to foul him. That was a big part of why Purdue was unable to be successful against St. Peter's and last year against FDU. It's hard to play with guys hanging on your arms, Jim, unless they call those fouls. And so that was part of it. Now he's getting a fair whistle, and here they are. Here they are in the Final Four. I don't know whether they go from here. We'll see. I mean, obviously he's got to go against DJ Burns on Saturday. That's a challenge. But if they get there, I think at this point, I'll say this, Jim, with great confidence. If it's not Purdue against Yukon on Monday night, it won't be competitive.
Not only that, I'll be shocked.
It will not be competitive.
I'll be very surprised. But, the Alabama team, they're taking on Yukon. Man, I don't think Yukon looks unbeatable. And that's not a word you can use. You can't say that in this tournament. Because in Alabama, if there's a team, it might be Alabama just because of their freakish ability to hit threes if they're on.
Well, I mean, they have to be on. But I do think there's an advantage for them in that they are a much better shooting team than Illinois is, and they will judge, especially having watched what happened to Illinois. They'll try to get fast break layups. Of course, they want to play at pace, but they're not going to take the ball right into Donovan Klingen's jaw like Illinois did. I mean, it was fruitless. And Illinois needed to abandon that tactic when it was fruitless and they were still in the game, and they didn't. They kept it up. It was a very surprising for a coach who I lauded on multiple occasions in various venues, BTN, etc., for being maybe as flexible as any coach in the Big Ten, the most willing to say, this is working, let's do this. This is not working, let's stop. In that game, he didn't. I don't understand exactly why that was the case, but it wasn't working to attack him, and they kept doing it. And he kept blocking their shots or altering them, and ultimately, they left a lot of points on the rim or a lot of points on their fingertips when it was being swatted off.
Absolutely. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network is with us. We've got to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to set the table for the NCAA Tournament Championship, the Final Four coming up. It's championship week, Mike, as I'm sure you know. NIT semis tonight at Hinkle, High School Chipotle Nationals tomorrow night start in Brownsburg High School. And then, of course, not here, but the NCAA men's and women's Final Fours this weekend. But plenty more to get to. Brought to you by our good friend Cheryl Sizemore, Remax Realty. If anyone is moving or selling their home, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. We're back with more Mike DeCourcy right after this. Just making sure you were there, RC.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't see you. So you don't have to pop in, right? So can you talk to us when you're not in screen?
No, I can't.
John has a way. I don't know, huh? Crazy goof. He decides to take vacation in the middle of the NCAA tournament. I was like, what's wrong with you?
Who does that?
Who does that?
Absolutely.
I got married when I was married. I got married in February because I was competing in rodeo, and that was of all times. But it was like, well, all right, this is the only break I got. Mike, I want to compare or talk about Edey comparing to like Jabbar and Walton and Oscar, Ralph, Sampson.
Okay.
And I was watching Blue Chips last night.
Oh, no.
Gee whiz.
Why do you do that to yourself?
It was happened to be on. So I'm like, oh, I'll watch that. I thought it was actually, it really amazed me because of how ahead of its time that movie was as far as the issue that they were taking on. It was funny. The stuff that they were saying. Well, these rules are stupid. The kids are getting screwed. We're getting all these contracts and TV and shoe money and they get squat.
Hey, Jim, I'm going to go ahead and throw you guys back live since we have to break
right.
in 15 for Fort Wayne. So 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey, welcome back on this Tuesday. Hope you're staying dry. Appreciate you being with us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Of course, Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and the Big Ten Network with us. Mike, this weekend, Zach Edey will get the opportunity to lead Purdue to the promised land for the Boilers. A national championship is something that they have not won, but they've already broken down one barrier, having reached the Final Four for the first time in 44 years. Very cool scene with Zach Edey. First of all, it's a very funny scene of him cutting the net, just standing on the ground. And I'm like, that's amazing.
That's a
that yes. But handing the piece of net to Gene Katie, which that's a pretty cool thing to see. I happened to be listening to the radio broadcast on the way I was driving, so I was listening to Robbie Hummel, and Robbie's going to be with us here today. But he got emotional, and normally in media that's not allowed, but sometimes things are just allowed. And Robbie is such a pro that it's actually, it was great to see. And most of all, you have to be happy for Matt Painter. I know Indiana fans are like, nope, no, you don't. And trust me, I get that. I'm with you. If I was a fan, if I was looking at it from a fan standpoint, I'd be the same way. When I was a fan or was able to be a fan of things, I'm Larry Bird, baby. Nope, we are no friends. Nope, we're not friends until this deal is over, which I loved it. There is nobody who has lived that more than him. He was the most no friend guy on the court, and now he's all buddy with everybody. It cracks me up. But I was watching Blue Chips yesterday. Man, Shaq, that young Shaq, he was something. He couldn't shoot a free throw, but damn, he could take the ball up the floor. He was a mobile, gigantic big man.
Oh, he was amazing. I remember the first time I saw him. I was
it in Algiers, Louisiana?
No, I saw him. He was in the Dapper Dan All-Star game in Pittsburgh. This had been, I think, 89, and I was covering it for the Pittsburgh Press. And they were practicing at the community college. And to get to the community college, you walked up a ramp and then turned the corner into the gym. And I remember I walked up and I turned the corner, I opened the door and I said, that must be Shaq, because he was just immense. And that was when he was still, before he got really big, he was lean and dynamic, and he was phenomenal, just a phenomenal basketball player. And then I remember in that year's McDonald's game, I believe, he actually went coast to coast with the ball. He grabbed the rebound and took it coast to coast. He was just an absolute stud as a basketball player. And later on, he got heavier. I'm not using that as a pejorative. He got heavier.
Beef. He got some beef on him.
He got beefier. Yes. And I remember I was in the locker room in the Palace of Auburn Hills. They played an exhibition game. The U.S. Olympic team played an exhibition game against a college all-star team that included Tim Duncan. And that was when I came to realize how great Tim Duncan was when he played against those guys. And I was in the locker room and like Shaq was sitting there, and I've never seen a bigger human. I mean, until maybe Zach. Everything on him was huge. His hands, his feet, just an enormous human. And he was a tremendous player and really pleasant to be around.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And I want to talk about the comparison between the players like Jabbar and Walton and Oscar Robertson, Ralph Sampson, and Edey. Why they didn't put up quite the type of numbers that Edey has. I think there's a lot of differences because of the era of the game, who they were playing with. For Shaq, it's probably who he was playing for, Dale Brown. But because like Shaq, there's no way that if I saw him and Edey play, he's going to kill Edey. Just because he's so athletic. He was freakishly big and freakishly athletic. He was a once in a generation type player. But why did they not have grabbed the attention quite the way Edey has?
Oh, I don't know why you'd say they didn't.
I mean, it just seems like Edey is just really maybe it's because of the time era when we are people or in media or putting people up more. Maybe I don't know, because you didn't have the social media stuff back then and all of that. So I'm sure that plays a big part of it.
Well, I mean, I Kareem, when he was in high school, was the most famous high school player in America when he was recruited. I mean, everybody in the country was aware of him who followed those sorts of things. He was, and when he went to UCLA, it was a big deal. I think that what's different with Zach compared to the prior superstars, Oscar, then Kareem, Bill Walton. What's different now is that all those guys came into college basketball. I mean, Oscar here with Crispus Attucks, I mean, it was well known that this was an extraordinary player. As I mentioned with Kareem, there was no secret there that he was going to be really special. Ralph Sampson, I mean, it was one of the biggest recruiting battles ever. And these guys all became great college players. With Zach, it's totally different. He's the one guy that's now in that sentence, multiple player of the year award winner, who was not a sensation coming out of high school. He was not even really noticed. I mean, 400th in his class and not a ton of scholarship offers. When he arrived at Purdue, it was not a big deal. When he played his freshman year at Purdue, it was not a huge deal. It wasn't really until the year between the summer between his freshman and sophomore year that it became apparent how really special he could be. And I do wonder if Travion Williams had not been in place on the 2022 team. No offense to Travion, who had a great career and a great year, but if he was not in place, would Zach have happened sooner? Would Zach have become a all Big Ten player at least his sophomore year, maybe even more, maybe a fringe All-American before he later became the best player in the country? How much did that dynamic limit Zach's impact early in his career? I suspect that Zach could have been a first-team All Big Ten player as a sophomore if Trey were not there. And again, they were probably better because Trey was there. It's not I'm just saying in terms of the dynamic of what was possible for Zach, the fact that they already had an incumbent center probably held him back from becoming extraordinary sooner. But I think it's a really cool story and a really cool modern college basketball story that we could have, developed in college. An all-time great college player. And there's no way around the fact that he is an all-time great college player. You win multiple National Player of the Year awards, and you look at the list of guys who've done that. You're in that group now. I mean, you may not be, like, if I did my book on the top 100 college players again, like today, I mean, he may not, I had Ralph 30 something. Because I thought that even though he was exceptional, that his impact was muted, maybe by the rules, maybe by the way he was deployed, whatever. His impact was muted. Now, Jay Billis will tell me I'm crazy, and he has, because he played against Ralph, and it was like a nightmare. But his impact wasn't what it might have been. So I think that the game changes, but Zach would certainly be in the top half of that 100 greatest college players list, no doubt. Like I said, how high? I'd say probably inside the top 30, top 35, easy. And and he could, hey, if they get through the next 2 games, he's shooting up the top 25 level.
Definitely has the opportunity to take Purdue places they've never been this weekend. Yukon has been I was very surprised earlier in the season that they weren't number 1 for weeks and weeks. And I'm like, UConn's the best team in the country. Why? It took them a while to reach that number 1 spot, which matters nothing. It was just, I just noticed it and thought it was kind of weird. But now that we've had the season, they're rolling, they're destroying teams that are playing really well. Illinois is a good team. Just absolutely dismantled them. It's amazing to see. It's amazing to see the job that Danny Hurley has done, replacing 75% of his offense. I don't know how you do that. I mean, well, I do in this day and age, but nobody else did that as successfully as he did. And so that's wild. But, man, they have so many ways to hurt you, and they have some guy named Donovan Clingan. So that ain't too bad.
Yeah, I think that's the most underreported part of this Yukon thing. I wrote about that in my piece about their attempt to repeat as national champion, that they lost 75% of their scoring from last season's team. And this is, not just guys, but Andre Jackson was terrific last year. I mean, just an absolute warrior leader guy that you'd want on your team every day. Adama Sanogo, who was all first team, all Big East, and made 3 threes in the championship game. Jordan Hawkins, who was a lottery pick by the Wizards. They had great talent, and they got better when those guys left. I mean, they're a more dominant team this year than they were a year ago. I think that's just staggeringly good. It's why we named Danny Hurley National Coach of the Year, because they were able to do all of that. It's been an amazing coaching performance, and an underrated one, because there are people who aren't giving it to him because, well, I guess, they're the reigning champions, but it's not the same team that is dominating now as won the title a year ago.
And it's not going to be just Zach Edey against Donovan Clingan, but that is going to be a heavily anticipated matchup.
If it happens, yes. It will be very interesting to see how that goes, because this will be maybe the first time this season that Zach has gone against a player who is more his size, he may have played against a body that big, but not a player like him. Clingan's legit. He's going to be an NBA guy like Zach will. And so to face somebody who's 7'1", 7'2", who's mobile, and a really outstanding defensive player, it'll be interesting if indeed it happens. I'm not taking anything for granted, because they're both in for difficult games, at least from the jump. I mean, we look at that Illinois game now, and it looks like it was a blowout, and it was in the end, but for a half, it was very competitive. Yeah. And Illinois did a really nice job of being competitive in that game in the first half, even though they didn't play exceptionally well, but they let it get away from them. So, it's up to Alabama to not let it get away. And then, of course, Purdue versus NC State. You can't count NC State out of any game right now when they've beaten Duke, when they've beaten Carolina, when they've gone on the run that they have. You can't count them out of any game. You have to believe that they have a significant chance to win.
Absolutely. And looking forward to that. There's just been, this is just rumors and all that in regards to Clemson and Florida State, the issues they're having with their ACC, and people say, oh, they're joining the Big Ten. I don't know that I see that happening, even if they were to get out of the ACC. I don't know what they would bring to the Big Ten with football wise, it would be huge, but they do not add any television market, but they bring television star power.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's necessarily something that that will be desirable at this point. I don't know that there's another. I mean, you're talking about ballpark, and this is just wrong. Like another 140, 150 million that the rights holder would have to kick out there to take both of them, or half of that to take either of them. I don't know whether there's that much money in them. I don't. I remember Washington and Oregon are coming in at half share for however many years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever the term is. Maybe it's 3. I don't remember now. But they're coming in at a half share. And if Clemson and Florida State got all that trouble and pay all these legal fees and whatever withdrawal fee they'll have to pay if they do win, and then get a half share, they're basically where they are now. That just seems like a lot of trouble to go through. For Oregon and Washington, it was different because the Pac-12 was crumbling and was not about to get a significant TV deal. So I don't know whether that there's the appeal there. I suspect not, but we'll see. I have been wrong before only because I didn't realize how absolutely botched the Pac-12. I thought the Pac-12 was going to survive because I thought there was enough money in it for them. But they turned it down. So I think there's the possibility that it could happen. Do I think there are schools in the ACC that the Big Ten would like to have? Yes. I just don't think those are the two. And so I've read some legal stuff and saw an interview on a podcast with an attorney who doesn't think that they have really a case, that doesn't believe that either Clemson or Florida State has a case against.
It's going to be really hard. I mean
if you signed a contract,
they've signed it like 3 different times.
Yeah. I don't know how you say, well, things changed. Well, that's the nature of the world. That's why contracts exist. Can they get out of it? Yeah, but they'll have to pay more than it's worth to get out of it.
Yeah, the conference has put themselves in no good favors. Man, enjoy yourself out in the desert this week as Mike will be out in Phoenix for the NCAA Final Four. So I hope you enjoy that. We look forward to talking to you next week and after – see where the chips fall, baby.
You bet, Jim. Thanks.
You got a prediction?
If I have to predict, I will say that I think we'll see Yukon play Purdue on Monday. But like I said, I'm not taking anything for granted. I think you always have a shot. I do think that Connecticut's extraordinary. I think Purdue is better than NC State by a fair amount, but they have to prove it on the floor as they did Sunday when I thought Tennessee is a much better team than NC State, even NC State in this iteration. And they were able to get through that one.
Absolutely. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. Thank you, boss. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Jim.
You betcha. Hey, we've got more coming up, including Robbie Hummel joining us in the next hour. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this. Oh. Crown Coach's next, right?
I have no idea what you just said. It's hard to believe Archie Miller just beat Yukon. What was it, in 2019, the Joey Brunk year at IU? It's funny, at that point, we beat Dan Hurley in an ugly 50-some-odd point game. It was 57-54. December 10th, 2019. We beat Yukon with Dan Hurley as the coach and Archie Miller. Wild, I didn't realize that, Russell. Does anyone know where Dan Hurley was before that? Because I know they said that he had some kind of relationship with Archie Miller. Oh, he was at Rhode Island. That's funny. That's wild. So there's another connection between he and Archie now that Archie's at Rhode Island. I'm from Evansville, Russell, but I live out in Los Angeles now.
Archie Miller. What a goof. What a goof.
Ready to go live, Jim?
Yeah. Chronic joins us at 9:50, right?
Yeah. So that'll be the next segment.
Yeah. So are we off a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I splice in the time later, or the commercial, so we can go live now that you're back. So we go live, and we're off by. Sorry, I have to check my phone. In 3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. It's championship week. So much going on. NIT semis tonight. Indiana State, the Sycamores, trying to get a title. They should have been playing in the NCAA tournament, but what a story for their coach. Man, he could have had a multi-million. I still don't understand, and I don't know if it's been made official that he's going to St. Louis, but that is just such a weird move for me. It's a lateral move. I'm sure that obviously St. Louis, being a major city as compared to Terre Haute, no offense to Terre Haute, I'm sure that St. Louis was a draw, and obviously they're probably going to be able to pay him more money. $350,000, that's pretty cheap to get away for paying a coach. But man, he could have went from $350,000 to about $3.5 million. And golly, I would be sick with myself. But it's odd because of how it happened. From what I understand, the Louisville AD did not know about that when he contacted Indiana State's coach. So that's crazy. Oklahoma State names the Western Kentucky's Steve Lutz as their men's basketball coach. That came out yesterday. He had emerged as the focus of their search last week. He's coming off of consecutive NCAA tournament appearances, having led Western Kentucky to the Conference USA title in his first 3 seasons at the helm. It was the Hilltoppers' first NCAA tournament appearance since 2013, and their 22 wins was their most since 2018. So prior to replacing Rick Stansbury at Western, Lutz was the head coach at Texas A&M Corpus Christi for a couple seasons. going to the NCAA tournament both times there. So he's not only that, he was a longtime assistant serving 4 seasons under Matt Painter at Purdue and 7 under Greg McDermott at Creighton. That's pretty good tutelage right there. 2 great coaches to study under. So he's got that going for him, which is nice. NCAA tournament action, like I said, NIT semifinals tonight, Indiana State going at it as they take on Utah, and the other game, Georgia, and for the life of me, I cannot remember who they're playing. I'll have to get that pulled up. But, oh, man. Seton Hall out of the Big East. So some pretty good games. I mean, Georgia was looked at as they were a bubble team, couldn't quite get over the bubble. But Indiana State was not exactly, well, they were a bubble team, but not too many of us thought that they were. And they're kind of reaffirming that with this run to the NIT. Now it'll be awesome to see them win that. That would be kind of cool to see that stay in the state of Indiana. We've already had the NCAA Division III national champion be decided, and it was Trine University up near Fort Wayne. So that would be pretty wild. So keep that one home. And so I don't have John to talk about his parlays that he might be laying down. I finally broke the seal and bet one the other day. Yeah, I should have just stayed on the sideline. Did not go well. Lost that thing. So that's nuts. I need to quit betting. So, hey, make sure you go to the Autograph app and download that. They're one of the new sponsors of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. It's where unhinged fandom meets unreal rewards, and you can follow all of your teams and in complete totality while following the tournament and getting crazy ticket prices for events. But just go to autograph.com and they'll get you taken care of. You may end up someplace wild that you never expected. Let's see what else coming up today. I can't wait to get to Hinkle, first of all. What a special place that is. And to see that under with a tournament championship being laying into balance. Heath, a fan of Bill Walton calling games. Just kidding. Hey, I as long as this is not a game that I really care about, I love listening to him. If it's a game that I really want to watch, not so much. You can't. He does not allow you to focus on the game, man. But it is more than comical to see him. And is it Jason Benetti he's with generally? But how that dude, he should get paid double hazard pay because he's sitting there calling the game and juggling Bill Walton at the same time. But Bill Walton is a great guy. I had a chance to work with him a long, long time ago when I was Putz working for CBS Sports. Super, super good guy. And most of those guys are, as a matter of fact. So you got that going on. Indiana kicking the tires on a lot of different guys. Waiting for commitments. Waiting for guys to lock down. One of the latest is 6'8" forward Darling Stone Dunbar from Hofstra. He's in the portal, averaged 18 points last year, converted 40%. Yes, I said 40% of his 5.5 3-point attempts per game. So first of all, he's putting the ball up. If you're averaging 5.5, man, you're putting that thing up there pretty frequently. And 40%, it's a lot of points. That's a lot of points just on 3-point shooting. So that he's about, and it cracks me up. And it just goes to show you how the rankings and all that, it's such a weird science because it's a lot of guessing by the guys that do it. And the guys that that create the rankings, they're not coaches. They're not coaches. So seeing athletic ability, yeah, pretty much anybody can see that. You can see the ones that stand out, but it's the ones that don't stand out. And I'll use Tom Crean as an example, going out and finding OG Anunoby and Juwan Morgan. Guys that, excuse me, that didn't stand out, but whatever it was, and OG, Tom Crean could see that. That's Victor Oladipo was a 3-star. Cody Zeller, on the other hand, that's obvious. He was a big that was a big, and you knew to expect things from him. But yeah, well, you look at Purdue's team, the rankings on their roster, it probably averages. I don't know if it averages out to be 3 stars across the board. They don't. It's not about highly ranked recruits in their system, in Matt Painter's system. So it's just not always about that. But I do think I've been saying for a minute that I do not see Purdue winning the national championship. And it's because the last 5 teams that have won it had a minimum of 4 NBA draft picks on their roster, and Purdue doesn't have that. And that is what I think will be the difference between the Boilers and Yukon. When and like Mike said, I expect for them to be in the national championship game. They are the 2 best teams left. Doesn't always mean the 2 best teams play. North Carolina State on this unbelievably goofy, magical mystery tour run with DJ Burns. But I don't think he's going to be able to handle Edey. Like I said yesterday, I think Edey's going to block a bunch of his shots unless he's doing some fadeaways. He's got really good footwork, and he's really quick. But I think he makes a lot of the same moves, and Edey's going to be looking at a lot of tape. And he'll be ready. It's hard to get around Edey. He takes up a lot of space. We've got to take a break. We've got lots more coming up, including Chronic Hooiser, and Robbie Hummel will join us as well here in this hour. We're back with more, brought to you by Hooiser, Hanks East, over off of College Mall Road. Back with more right after this.
Cool. We're back on perfect timing now.
Perfect timing.
Back on track.
Back on track. Yes, I'm back in black. Man, I don't think I'm ever getting my voice back.
Doesn't seem like it.
It has like so plateaued, and it's I don't get it. Chronic, how you doing, brother?
All right, I'll go ahead. I'll throw them on, and I can count you guys in if you're.
Well, hold on, just hold easy there, easy. Hey, Chronic, how's it going, brother?
What's good, Jim?
You know it, man. Just living the dream. Living the dream. How's it going with you?
It's going. I'm just sitting here. My daughter's going up to a concert Thursday, going to see Morgan Wallen. I spent more for parking than I did for my first pair of tickets to Downtown Indy show.
If my daughter was in town, she'd probably be going to that as well. So there's that.
Give that dude credit.
Hey, well, you got. Are you going to the concert that's coming up here?
No, I am not.
Well, I mean, is your daughter?
Clayton. I don't know if she is or not. No, actually, the Eclipse one, she's going to be working. My cousin's got a campground.
I keep forgetting about that stupid Eclipse. I mean, I've seen one in my life. Hell, it was just about 6 years ago, right? Or 8 years ago?
17.
2017, yeah.
I'm like, okay, it's a solar eclipse. I know it does, but why? We'll talk about it on air.
All right, I'll count you guys in. Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Boom, boom, boom. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you immensely. Chronic Hooiser joins us now, and Chronic, we're just talking in the break. Monday is the solar eclipse, and we are right in the epicenter as far as being in Bloomington. Along the trek that is going to travel. And while I think it's cool, and I think we're very fortunate to be able to be in that situation, I remember seeing one, just a few years ago. So I'm like, okay, we're getting a solar eclipse. It's not like we're the Incas and don't know what the hell's going on, and we're gonna, go run into the ocean or something. So I don't get this massive deal. All the people that are going to be descending on this area, Chronic.
Yeah, it's going to be wild. I'm not gonna lie. I took time off to be with the family to see it. We were in Shawnee National Forest in southern Illinois, down at Garden of the Gods back in 2017 when the last one came. And like us next week, that was in the path of the totality zone. And I never imagined I'd see a crowd sufficient to close a national forest. But we were 3 cars on the right side, and they cut it off because it was so dense, so packed that they couldn't get emergency vehicles through the forest, so they had to shut it down. But it's gonna be something for sure. It's like you said, it's a celestial occurrence. It's random. It's crazy. It's 4 minutes, at best, and that's only if the clouds aren't out. It's a whole lot of anticipation for something that is probably more likely than not going to be obstructed by clouds. But it is what it is. They're saying, up to 200,000 visitors in Bloomington this weekend. So I'm interested to see exactly what the crowd is. I'm getting as far away from it as possible. The crowd that is, but it's coming, and it's, I guess, what better way to break the town in advance of Little Five than, doubling the town's population and visitors.
What time is it supposed to happen?
I want to say 3:00.
I've got my cigars ready. I'll just be hanging out, chilling.
The craziest thing that I experienced with the last time, the sun goes away. We live in Indiana. The sun goes away quite a bit. We're used to that. It's the way nature responds. To hear especially last time when we were in the middle of the national forest, you don't realize how much noise there is until you pause it, until you put it all on mute. And it's like everything living just freezes. And it's as eerie and quiet as anything I've ever experienced. That's wild. I'm curious to see if that holds true every time, like I've read it does.
Well, certainly coming at a time of big. It's kind of like the end of. It's coming on the day of the NCAA championship, which will kind of close out an unbelievable basketball run here in the Indiana area, especially the Indianapolis area. You had a men's tournament site there up in Fort Wayne. They had the Division III National Championship down in Evansville. You had the Division II National Championship. Tonight, you've got the NIT semifinals at Hinkle And tomorrow start the Chipotle High School National Finals at Brownsburg High School with the NCAA championships out in Phoenix. But that's a ton of basketball that is, and the state finals. Forgot about
I was just
those
going to say, you can't forget IHSA.
And the state finals just happened. Dude, I have been running ragged.
No, speaking of which, shout out Dave Bender and the Brownstown Central High School Braves. Brought the 2A title back to Browns, Tucky. Former classmate of mine, lived just down the road. First dude ever to dunk on my barn hoop. One of the only dudes ever to dunk on my barn hoop, but a hell of a basketball player, a good dude. His son Jack's unfortunately going to be putting on the black and gold next year for Matt Painter, but super proud of those guys. It's just really, really cool to see a town as small as Brownstown. I know they're big for 2A standards, but the sign that was up on town just up until a couple of years ago, it's 213 happy people that live, 2013 happy people that live there. If you lived there, you'd be home. But shout out to the Braves.
I'm certainly for it. Indiana basketball, man, they are all in on recruiting right now. You've got the signing of Bryson Tucker to fill that role of Liam McNeely. And we just saw that Dusty May's first phone call as the Michigan head coach was to Liam McNeely. I wonder, I would bet that he's down here watching him. If that's, can coaches watch players right now?
I have no idea. I'm not sure what period we're in at the moment. And we're in the Wild West right now. It's portal season.
Yeah. So if they're able to, I'd be shocked. Well, hell, not just him. There's probably going to be quite a few as that Chipotle High School National Finals goes on, because there's not just Liam McNeely there. There's a lot of guys. I don't know if Jalen Harrelson's playing in that, but there is a ton of talent that will be playing in that. Connor Hickman reportedly has an entourage of Indiana coaches paying him an in-home visit today. He is that would kind of be a step in getting salving a salve in some Indiana fans who like to see Indiana players. It would be really odd, Chronic, to see Indiana bring Indiana kids in via the portal instead of recruiting.
I'll take them any way we can get them. I don't necessarily care what's on their birth certificate per se. More than anything, just get it right. Obviously, there's still a lot of needs. They at least crossed the halfway mark with Tucker's commitment. So now you have less than half the roster yet to fill, up to 7 scholarships for next season. So there's still a lot of work to be done in a lot of different positions, a lot of needs that need to be addressed. The biggest thing is, I think more than anything, you got to get the chemistry right. This is like speed dating. There's not a lot of time. You got a lot of film to watch, but there's not a lot of time to do the meet and greets and to get a true sense of what the fit's going to be like. And part of that too is, the guys that are prospective recruits, they want to know what kind of team they're joining. And there's whole other, challenges with that. Just with all the current players' availability and whatnot. So it's a tricky situation, and IU gets to jump through it several times here. It's nice to see at least one name on the board, and I would imagine we're probably about ready to see a flurry of activity. Hopefully, as the staff starts to fill that roster out. But good to get one on the board. Good to get a high-level talent on the board. Now let's just see what pieces they can fill in and what exactly that mosaic looks like here come summertime. Because, it's one of those situations as well where you're at the point where you can't even do a full court scrimmage with your scholarship players. You got Galloway out. I saw Leal in a boot yesterday as he was up at York Chrysler Jeep getting his new whip. So you only have five scholarship guys that are currently available at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do as far as individual workouts heading into the close of the school year with so little guys currently available to run with.
Chronic Hooiser on with us now, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda. Bloomington. Make sure you go to andymorehonda.com to get more to your door. Do you think Woody has learned at least from last season, how important recruiting actually is. Not only that it's not as easy as he might have thought that it was. And finding those hidden gems, how important that is, because it seems like that has come back to kick Indiana more than once.
No, it's a tricky situation, and you've got all sorts of different things in play right now, not the least of which is, you want to maximize the resources you have, and scholarships are gold. So being as I don't want to say frugal, but as deliberate, as strategic as you can, and how you hand those out and how you construct the roster. Obviously, you've got to fill certain positions. You want to have depth at those positions. But what he had said earlier when he first came in, that he felt like Indiana deserved a seat at the table in recruiting the nation's best players. And credit to Woody and his staff. They made that happen. People forget just how close Woody was last year to possibly landing one of the top 2, top 3 classes in the nation. When it was Boogie Fland and McNeely and Queen were all seriously considering IU. Obviously, that didn't break. You got one commitment and that one didn't stick. Well, that's what this table's like, man. The table we're sitting at now is cutthroat. It is extremely fickle, and it's one of those things where, despite all the efforts put forward, you still have a number of issues to contend with. Not the least of which are the whims of teenage dudes, and how those change over time, as you saw with Liam McNeely. But I think the biggest challenge for Woody now is, you have tape. You have 3 years of tape that show what you prioritize, how you coach, what systems you run. And unlike when you're first getting off the ground and you're preaching dreams and visions and plans, you've got tape on film now, and kids can see exactly what type of fit, how you utilize, and that can cut both ways, good and bad. And I think by all accounts, that probably cut against us with the McNeely recruitment, but that's not to say that the tape isn't appealing to other guys. And at the end of the day, it is what it is. You want to swim in that pool, you better be prepared to tread like your life depends on it, because that's the situation a lot of guys find themselves in now. Is you can be on top of the world one year, and the next recruiting cycle, man, you are starting from ground zero again. And I'm not saying Woody's there right now. I think there is a very solid core coming back that, if done well and if done right, the portal and the offseason moves could put them in contention to compete next year. But as we've seen this year, paper don't win games. What looks great on paper's got to play out when the whistle blows. So this is going to be interesting to see what lessons the staff took from their past successes and misses, and how they apply that going forward. But I think when you look at the guys they're currently targeting right now, clearly an emphasis on trying to get experience, because I think the staff recognizes that you've got to have leadership on the floor, and I think you've got that pretty good next year with Galloway and Leal at the top. I'd love to see Renew step into a more prominent role, but a lot of that's going to have to be cleaning up some of the self-inflicted wounds. Leadership, something you do by example, but also building in some sort of continuity. It's tough when you miss out on all the freshmen. You got Tucker coming in to at least backfill that class. But one of the biggest challenges when you're trying to establish a culture and identity, you've got to have enough people on hand to pass that into the incoming classes. And probably one of my greatest takeaways from the Tom Crean year is just how important roster continuity can be, and just the perils of boom and bust cycles. And there were echoes of that certainly this year with that season and the way it all played out. And you certainly saw that play out in the fan discourse, to the point that you're circulating petitions, not even 2/3 of the way, or I'm sorry, 2.5 years into the coach's tenure. So certainly a pitfall you want to avoid. And the best way to do that is to get it right this cycle and get back on track.
Absolutely. Somebody that does not have to do that is Matt Painter. He has done what he needs to do as far as recruiting and keeping his line of culture going. And in our next segment, we get to talk to Robbie Hummel about that. But Chronic, I can't thank you enough, man. As always, appreciate you greatly.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jim. Take care.
You betcha. Chronicles here, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda Bloomington. Make sure you go to andymorehonda.com to get more to your door and the best in new and used vehicles. Up next, one of the Purdue greats, Robbie Hummel, joined us, and the busiest man in television. Right after this. Oh. Hey, Robbie, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Great, man. I really appreciate it. I know you're got to be tired.
One more week,
yeah,
and then
go into hibernation.
Yes. Play some golf. That's what I'm looking forward to.
You can join Don Fisher. He's about to beat you to it.
He goes on that trip with Paul Keels and those guys, don't they? Don't they?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. He's that guy. I don't know where he gets it, but he's got the fountain of youth somewhere.
No doubt. His voice is amazing. When I'm in the car and you flip to, you're driving somewhere and you hear him, man, that dude sounds so good.
It was made for basketball, radio, and basketball, better than football. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, Purdue had the same thing for a long time.
Yeah, Eclipse was awesome too. He was a beast, man. That dude. And Rob Blackman does a really good job, but Eclipse was he was a legend.
Well, they've got somebody else that's not doing too daggone bad named Robbie Hummel. So,
yeah, it's it's a grind though. But you get 7 months off and you're watching basketball. So there's worse things I could be doing. But the travel is what's the hardest part for sure.
That's Kristen Airy's on with us each Thursday, and it's the same, and more so for those guys. That golly, he just got off of a 9-game road stretch.
I know. The one thing about the NBA though is that you're flying private and you're staying in the 4 seasons.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is one thing, but you do have some really long trips. That's right.
Go ahead, RC.
All right, gentlemen, I'm gonna count you in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. It's championship week. Basically, NIT semifinals tonight. Indiana State, the Sycamores, up at Hinkle Fieldhouse, trying to continue their magical mystery tour this season and see if they can find a title. Purdue playing in the Final Four this weekend. So you still got some Indiana teams involved. Unfortunately, we have Robbie Hummel with us here today. I don't even know who you actually work for, Robbie. If it's ESPN and Fox and CBS and maybe NASA. I don't even know who all you work for.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind here. I was at ESPN last year, and then when they lost the Big Ten, I kind of saw not the writing on the wall, but I assumed that going from doing some of the better Big Ten games and with who they have with Vitale, even though, and the thing with Dick was because of his cancer, he didn't do, I don't think, any games this year. But had he been healthy, you've got him in the mix to do games. You've got Jay Billis, who's always going to do games. You've got Fran Fraschilla in the Big 12. You've got Jimmy Dykes in the SEC. And then kind of a plethora of guys that do the ACC as well. So, with some of the options that I ended up having, it made sense to leave. And yeah, so I'm at Fox. Fox owns BTN, so I'm at BTN as well. I did Peacock games. I ended up working for Turner in the NCAA tournament. I did Westwood One throughout the year. So I'm doing stuff for Bleacher Report, who's owned by Turner at the Final Four. It's been everybody over the course of the last year.
It's good to be wanted.
Yeah, that is true. It's better than everybody being like, you know what, we're good for this year. Hopefully that doesn't happen for the next however many years I do television. But I'm very fortunate. You get to sit courtside and watch high level basketball, and you think about how much tickets to the seats would be where you're sitting. Other than playing, you're not going to be in those places for free unless you're doing TV. So I'm very fortunate because I do love to watch basketball.
Ironic you say that. Blue Chips happened to be on last night.
I love Blue Chips.
I do too.
It's the best basketball movie, I think.
It is crazy how ahead of its time it was with the
Yeah.
topic. I was talking about that earlier with Mike DeCourcy. But the fact that that thing was filmed at Frankfurt High School
I know.
is people would be, if they really knew that, their minds would be just blown.
I wish I wish when I was coming out of college, they would have been filming a really, really cool basketball movie just down the street from West Lafayette. I do love to watch in Blue Chips just to like see who's in it. You know, like Calbert Cheney's in it, and Bobby Hurley's in it.
Bobby Hurley's playing for Indiana.
I know. That's so funny. Matt Painter is in it. He scores.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he scores a basket off like the wrong foot, like a right-handed layup off his right foot. And then I think he makes like a jumper. He's playing against Western. He's on one of the opponent teams. But when you look at like the rosters for who is on the teams and against the teams, it's
Rick
like a
Fox.
collection of just great players that live in Indiana. You know, then also Penny Hardaway, Matt Novers from Chesterton. So I always like followed him because I grew up in Valparaiso, and Chesterton is the rival high school there. And of course Shaq, you know. So I love Blue Chips. This is gonna sound crazy, but I think I like Blue Chips better than Hoosiers. Hoosiers has too many slow parts for me. Hoosiers is good, but Blue Chips, if I was gonna pick between the two, and I'll probably it's like blasphemous to say that in the state of Indiana, but I think I'd pick watching Blue Chips over Hoosiers.
I can't argue with you either way because it's just wild to watch it. But what it really brought to mind when you said that about the seats, the whole time, if you ever see the Dolphins in their locker room, in the background, it's Indiana playing. I guess it was supposed to be for scouting, but they always had Indiana playing, and you could see Assembly Hall, and it's like an empty gym. Although the seats are full, there are no seats on the sidelines. The sidelines are like barren, except for a middle section of media seats where the media used to get to seat before they moved them up to the 47th floor. But it's just so funny. It is barren. And I'm like, that's an actual game going on right there. And there's nobody there.
Yeah, I wonder what do you think it was? Do you think, is it like a scrimmage or?
No, it was a real game.
Where there was just nobody at Assembly Hall?
No. The seats were full, but a court side, all around the court itself.
Gotcha. Yes. Okay.
The court was just barren.
Because they hadn't put the seats on the floor yet.
Yeah.
The big money seats had not been implemented.
Exactly.
Okay, I got you now.
And it's so funny because it is so barren.
Think of the loss of revenue there. Trust
me.
Indiana's got to get on it back in the 90s. Make some money.
I promise you. AD was probably looking at that going, look how much money we lost.
Seriously, we left some on the table. But you know what? I've filled in for the Bulls a decent amount over the last couple years. And the Bulls and the Pacers are two of the rare teams that still have the TV crews on the floor. A lot of the NBA teams have started to move even the announcers up. Like I did a game, a Bulls game for the Wizards. We were up in like the concourse area of the lower bowl. I think Toronto is one of the few that still had TV down. But a lot of those places, they've recognized, man, these TV guys, they can do the game just as well from, 15 rows up, or I did the game in Milwaukee. We were like way up. And look, there are some positives, I think, to calling. When you call the game high off the floor, and Rutgers is the one example in the Big Ten of where, because of the way that's more, and like, this is no disrespect to Rutgers, Jim, because I love going there. It's a great atmosphere. But it kind of has the feel of a really big high school gym in the state of Indiana. Like the bleachers can be pushed back. They go all the way to the floor. And so you do it from kind of like the concourse level before, it's like really the mezzanine level, I would say, before you get to the upper deck of seats. But yeah, I think these NBA teams have recognized, man, these places and these seats that the announcers are sitting in, that's like a $500 ticket minimum, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. I don't know what if you're in LA, it's probably a $3,000 seat. If you're in Milwaukee, well, the team's good, but maybe a little bit less. Or I played Minnesota. I know they were less there. When I was with the Timberwolves, I used to look at the people, especially my second year, the year that we were bad, after we traded Kevin Love for Andrew Wiggins and Zach LaVine. And I remember thinking, man, these poor people paid money to come watch us play. We suck. So, yeah, they've gotten wise on the revenue side of things for that.
But it's not as easy for you guys to do, because I know the difference between there and not there. It's immense.
No,
just from what you see, what you hear, it's a big difference.
I think when you're off the floor, you can see things develop really easily. At times when you're on the floor, you can get kind of blocked. Like your view can be blocked. Whereas when you're up, you kind of have a bird's eye view of what's happening. So you see things well. Now you don't see maybe the physicality as well. You don't hear players talking to each other. The biggest thing I think is if there's a play that's in question, you have no idea, what the refs are thinking. They can't run 17 rows up to tell you. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that when there's something weird that happens and everybody's kind of confused, you just got to wait it out and hope that you can figure it out. Now that the college is kind of going to the NBA of they've got the microphone, press the button, they tell you, which that's fine. But yeah, there's pros and cons. I'd rather be on the floor. I love seeing how physical the game is up close and personal, and I love being able to hear guys, let's talk trash to each other or communicate to their teammates. I like that aspect of it, but when you're up high, you can see kind of the floor a little bit better.
Yeah, now you see the officials they'll come right over to the talent, the TV talent, and whatever. But if they got you guys up there, we got to come and foul at 14. There's no flagrant.
Yeah, and with college basketball's flagrant rules, man, we need explanations, because there's some that just will make your, any contact to the head, auto flagrant one. And look, I'm not saying that we should have the 90s NBA justice out there where we're just like killing guys, but
Bill
I'm making a
Lambier
play on the ball and I graze somebody up top, I don't think it should be an auto flagrant. I don't.
What is your biggest pet peeve as far as a rule? Is there a rule that you're like, I just hate that rule?
Well, the cylinder rule is like hilarious to me, because it's never called. It was like a point of emphasis 4 years ago. And I think it's dumb, because I think you should be able to post trap and be physical in post traps. And if there's a cylinder rule, essentially your trap is going to suck because you can't actually pressure the guy. And if you're a pressing team, like when it first got implemented, I was doing a good amount of Big 12 games at ESPN. And West Virginia under Bob Huggins was press Virginia at that time. And I'm like, well, how are they supposed to press if they can't take space away? Like they're not going to be able to be as effective. And they weren't, and they went away from it. So I think the cylinder rule is dumb. I'm glad that we've got the verticality into the game. It was an NBA thing where we see these bigs jumping straight up, because really what was, other than taking a charge, and now you've got these crazy collisions at the basket, that was really your only option. I don't think that it's necessarily being refereed great yet. I think the refs are still there's so many times where you see a guy jump straight up and some player goes barreling into him and it's an automatic foul, right? Like, so I think that I like the rule, but I don't think it's being officiated as well as it can be yet. And then the hook and holds, I'm over that. The reviews are what I would love to see. Sorry, it's taken me a long time to get here. I would love to see a challenge system put into college.
I agree.
Then it's like, we don't have to review every play. And in the first half, if we've got something under 2 minutes and you really want to challenge it. And if you win, keep it. You get 2 challenges. That way we're not going to the monitor 1,000 times to end the game. Just, you can challenge it. And you think about, I'm trying to think what game it was. There was a block shot in the NCAA tournament.
That was
a team that was trying to upset somebody. Sanford, Kansas.
Kansas, yes.
Now you
Horrible
still have to
call at
deal
the end of the game.
Bad call. And look, that's one of those plays where the officials are sprinting down. It's not like they're set. It's probably one of the more difficult calls because anytime you attack the rim aggressively, you're probably going to get the benefit of the doubt. That's why they tell you as a player, like, man, if you're going to go to the rim to dunk the basketball, because you usually get the benefit of the whistle. So this guy's going up top. He gets blocked from behind. You have to deal with the outcome. Like, and sometimes that's weird because the whistle blows and no one gets the ball. So it would probably have to fall back and be a jump ball, unless you see someone corral it. And then but still that's weird because people stop playing when the whistle blows. But then you could at least say, you know what? I challenge it. I challenge the call. And then they can go look at it. They can determine on video. And now you can at least do alternating possession, but it's not 2 shots, right? Like I would love to see a challenge system put in, or at least talked about. At least let's talk about it this offseason or whatever the next rule. They usually go every other year for the rule changes. That would be, I'm sick and tired. And it's not the officials' fault because this is what the rules are. I'm sick and tired of watching 38 reviews. One of my NCAA tournament games I did with Steve Smith, it was our last game of the day. And at this point, I can't remember what game it was, but we had 1 million reviews, and we were the last one on TV. So it was probably like 8 or 9 Pacific. It's like midnight Eastern. We've been there since, 9:00 a.m. And it's like, oh God, just get this over with at this point. The game's over, but we're reviewing everything. So that's my biggest pet peeve and it's not the ref's fault. That's the way the rules are set up. But it's
Angel Reese got fouled out last night in that game with Iowa on a really bad charge call. I'm like,
yeah, and that's like, all right, we can challenge it, and then you can look at it. And I just think it would be, the NBA's perfected it. Let's do it. I'd love to see that.
I agree. I was fortunate that I was driving on Sunday, driving back from seeing my daughter on Easter. So I had the pleasure of getting to listen to you on the call of the game, Purdue's game. And I was like, oh, wow, there's Robbie. And then at the end, of course, it was awesome to you're the ultimate professional. And first of all, I got to give you props for that. You are just the ultimate professional, always completely unbiased. And so it was awesome to see you get emotional and happy. You were part of the tribe that worked so hard to get to where these guys are. You had an injury that probably derailed a team that could have gotten there, but Purdue breaking that 44-year streak. Gene Cady getting the piece of net from Zach Edey was just very, very cool. But it's like there has to be so much emotion just pouring out of West Lafayette.
Yeah. Well, and the thing for me personally, I was shocked that was my reaction because, I obviously love Purdue and I obviously have a great relationship with Coach Painter, and Paul Lusk recruited me to Purdue and he's back on staff now. Elliot Bloom was the SID and then the Dobo after my freshman year, and he's still in that position. So there's still a lot of people that I played for and have been there since Coach Painter got there in 2005. But I did not think that would be my reaction. But Coach Lusk came over and gave me a big hug, and Bloom did the same. And then I was pretty blown away. And this speaks to kind of what Matt Painter is about and what he has done in West Lafayette. He came over and I'd already Coach Lusk and Bloom had already softened me up, like with the emotions for sure. But he came over and yeah, he talked about how great the team played and kind of how they did this. But then he turned to just kind of talking about how, the class that I was with Etuan Moore and Jawan Johnson kind of set the foundation. And he was saying the nicest things. Right? Like I was ready to talk about the game and he's talking about us. And, I certainly think the world of Coach Painter. He's a man of the utmost integrity. He's a great coach. I'm happy for him because now this validates him on a national scale. It's not like he changes when he gets to the Final Four, but the perception of him, I think, nationally changes when you make it to this level. And I've wanted this for him so badly because I know how hard he's worked. I know how much he puts into it. And man, he's just deserved this. I was thinking last night, I was playing my first year out of the NBA. I was playing over in Italy and I was in Milan playing for Giorgio Armani's basketball team. He owns this team.
Oh, nice. Did they outfit you all, by the way?
we did like more modeling than we did basketball. Like it was.
Were the uniforms Armani?
Yes, down to our spandex, socks, everything but shoes. Shoes.
That's
the team
awesome.
had a Nike contract. But man, you'd pick up a magazine in an airport of Italian basketball. I flipped it over one time, and I'm on it modeling an Armani polo. It was the funniest thing because we did a bunch of photo shoots, and it was all about supporting the brand. But a game in December, I block out this dude who's running full speed at me, lower my shoulder, and I dislocate my shoulder and have to come home and have surgery. And I tore my labrum, so I was going to be out for 6 months, and I'm like, man, my basketball career could be screwed. I'm out of the NBA. I was playing EuroLeague. I was playing okay, but now I've got to sit out for 6 months. I haven't bought a house yet. Now I live in Chicago. I bought it before I went to Moscow to play. But I guess I live with my parents in rehab in Valpo like that. No offense to Valparaiso, Indiana, but as a pro athlete rehabbing, or do I rent a place in Chicago? Now that can rack up and rehab. That's not cheap. And as an athlete, we're spoiled because you're like, well, rehab's free. I walk in the training room, whether that's for an NBA team or your college team, and you just rehab for free. And Coach Painter called me and he was like, hey, come be a volunteer assistant, live at my house and rehab here. And I'm like, that was the nicest thing that's A, get experience seeing what college coaching is about. B, live here for free at my house. C, rehab for free with our training staff who does a great job. I mean, that's such a nice thing for him to do. And that he goes above and beyond for all his former players. So that's a long way of saying it, but I'm really happy for him and his staff because he deserves this. And when he was saying those really nice things, it was really hard. But so many former players that I've talked to are so happy for these guys and for the coaching staff. And you watch that team play; they play the right way. They play hard. They play together. They play for each other. They are a group that's incredibly connected. And I think a part of that is definitely the fact that you've had two coaches since 1982 or 3. That's Michigan State is very fortunate to have Judd Heathcote, and then that kind of went into Tom Izzo, and Purdue's got the same thing with Gene Cady into Matt Painter. And you kind of compare that to Indiana, and you've got the Bobby Knight era, and then you've got Mike Davis,
everybody else,
Sampson, and you've got Tom Crean, and it's just it's hard to have continuity when it's so splintered and you've got all these different groups. And that's something that I think in hiring Mike Woodson, the hope was, well, he's a guy that's been through Indiana, and that has to be kind of like a reunification process that he can do it because he's been there, like just like Matt Painter has been there. And I think that's got to be the hope for Indiana going forward, is that he can be a guy that maybe brings all those groups together. Because I just from the outside looking in, I do feel like Indiana, from the players to kind of, and not so much the fans, but really the players, like it's a little bit fractured.
Absolutely. Oh, I can promise you that's the case. And a big part of it is exactly what you just said. At Purdue, even though there are two eras, there's not really. It's one era. It's one era that is kind of blended.
And Matt Painter bridges that gap, right?
Yeah,
like he
yes.
played for that early
just seamlessly.
Yeah, and he's done a great job of, we have the alumni game every other year. We have an alumni game. Everybody comes back. The game is fun. Everybody hangs out. There's a cookout at Coach's house. He has done a phenomenal job of getting former players to feel welcome. And I've talked to so many guys that played at other places, whether that's Northwestern, whether that's Penn State, whether that's, wherever. And when it's not your coach, it can be really awkward to go back. You don't really, you feel like you belong there, but it's not the same when it's not the guy that you played for. And at Purdue, we've been so fortunate that Coach Paint's been great because he bridges that gap. And even if you played for Coach Cady, or even if you played for somebody else before Coach Cady, Coach Painter's done an excellent job of making you feel welcome. And that's something that I think all college coaches have got to strive to do, because the past is very important to help the present and the future.
Especially with how college athletics is now. It's
sure.
It's so much harder to do that. We don't have a lot of time left. Haven't even talked basketball. It's been too much fun just talking to you, to be honest with you.
Blue Chips really off-railed us.
Oh, dude, that movie was on last night, and I'm like, okay, forget it. Whatever else was going on, I'm in. Nick Nolte was awesome.
I know.
I happened to be around. I remember when he was shadowing Bob Knight.
Really? Oh yeah, he got to just to see him and get in character.
I can't believe he really embodied him a lot of the times.
Yeah.
When he on.
I love when he says Tony's failing TV. Tony's failing TV. That's awesome.
Oh, there's so many great. That thing is. Every time I watch it, I pick up something new.
I know. It's a great movie. It's a great movie.
All right. So this weekend, you've got Purdue and Yukon are the two heavyweights, but you've got an upstart in North Carolina State, which that's a wild story. But DJ Burns, man, I was watching him the other day. He was playing so well, great footwork, quick moves. But I'm thinking, Edey's going to just swallow those balls, man.
Yeah, I think the matchup is good for Purdue. NC State's only playing like 7 guys. You wonder how much juice they've got left in the tank. But they're playing like a team of destiny, to win 5 in 5 days at the ACC tournament and then be able to push this out and win 4 games in 2 weekends here at the NCAAs is really remarkable. And Burns is a big part of what they do. But DJ Horne's played well. Their point guard has really scored more. Michael O'Connell. He was more of a pass first guy at Stanford and has upped his offense these last 9 games. But they've shot the ball much better. Their defensive numbers over the last 9 are night and day versus their 4-game losing streak that they had to end the regular season. It's remarkable that Kevin Keats goes from, man, he's probably going to get fired, to now he gets an automatic extension in a race for making the Final Four. They're a great story. They really are. They are a team that has a good amount of transfers. Diarra's from Missouri, Morcell's from Virginia, DJ Horne's an Arizona State guy, O'Connell's from Stanford, DJ Burns is from Winthrop, and I think Burns, he might be on like the Antonio Gates route, he might not play pro basketball, but we might see him playing on Sundays. He's got that type of body. His footwork, like you mentioned, is really impressive to see. But I do think that just from what Purdue's strengths are, I don't think that is a great matchup for NC State. We'll see. And in that Yukon game, man, get ready for Alabama to shoot 53s. I did the Charleston Bama first round game. It was hilarious. Dan Dickau was doing the radio, and in radio, when it's a fast paced game, I was joking with Kugler in the Creighton, Tennessee game. I was like, man, get ready. I'm not going to say anything tonight, so you better have it. And that's how Dan had to be with Ryan Radke, and Ryan was sick. Ryan Radke is awesome. He does the Sunday Night Football game for Westwood One. Big time voice, really good play-by-play guy. Does a lot of Westwood One stuff alongside Kevin Kugler and Kevin Harlan. And he was not feeling great. And I'm watching this Charleston, Alabama game. And these guys are I'm like, Dan Dickau's not saying anything over there. There's no way. You have no time to get in. The play-by-play guy's got to tell you what's going on. So get ready for Alabama to play fast and shoot probably 53s. And that'll have to be the recipe to beat Yukon, because Yukon looks really, really good.
I want to see Jack Gohlke transfer to Alabama.
He'd be perfect. Take no dribbles, shoot no mid-range. We got these Synergy Sports. Synergy is this great program. I probably use it every day to watch games, and they give you some fascinating breakdowns. And for the tournament, they sent these reports of shot charts. Alabama's is so hilarious. They've shot 12 mid-range shots from the top of the key this season, and it's like 1,000 shots at the rim and like 1,700 threes around the arc. And the mid-range is like 12 at the top, 8 at the wing, 6 from they've taken like 40 mid-range shots, and they're probably all Aaron Estrada. He's the one guy that they just can't get the mid-range out of. He'll take some mid-range shots.
He says, I'm an old schooler, baby.
Exactly. I'm a bucket getter, and the bucket getters get the mid-range.
Robbie Hummel was a bucket getter, and he's still getting that job done on TV. Any idea how many games you did this year? I know you have an idea.
I'll end up doing 85 games.
Well,
but I've got summer vacation coming up, so here we go.
Well, if you ever get down to Bloomington, make sure you let me know. We got Todd Leary down here. We play some golf.
Sweet.
Buddy, I cannot thank you enough, Robbie. As always, really appreciate you taking the time because I know how busy you are. I know how worn out you are from doing 85 TV games and preparing for that. But congratulations. Good luck this weekend, even though it's not you, still as part of the fam. You're once in the family, always in the family.
There you go. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Robbie Humble joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thanks to Chronic Hooiser as well, and Mike DeCourcy for joining us as he does each and every Tuesday. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here. We're back. We're off for the next 2 days, back on Friday with Bob Kravitz and that crew as well. So until then, for our RC, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.